Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Jennings. I work for National Disability Institute, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Supplemental Security Income, the Impact of Work on Benefits. Agenda is going to provide you with a lot of information to help you think about utilizing SSI disability benefits and making a return to work. I'm going to start off with some housekeeping tips from my colleague, Nakia Matthews. Then we're going to look at an overview of the financial wellness survey results and the importance of economic empowerment, the basis for this webinar series. We're going to look at the impact of work on SSI disability benefits. We're going to get a perspective from a special guest, an individual with MS, and we're going to talk about some suggested next steps. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Nakia Matthews, to provide you with some housekeeping tips.
Good afternoon, everyone. The audio for today's webinar is being broadcast through your computer. Please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are turned up and plugged in. You can control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel, which you see a little example of there on your screen. And if you accidentally close this panel, you can reopen it by going to Communicate and Join Audio Broadcast. It also helps if the sound drops out during the middle of the webinar. Closing that panel down and opening it back up will probably solve that problem. If you don't have sound capabilities on your computer or you prefer to listen by phone, you can dial below and enter the meeting code, and you do not need to enter an attendee ID. Please note in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, we have closed captioning available in the media viewer for who are deaf, hard of hearing, or where English is a second language. Use this down if you don't want to see it by minimizing the media viewer, or you can make it larger by closing some of the other panels like panelist, chat, Q&A. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, you can use the chat box to send me, Nakia Matthews, a message, or you can email Elizabeth at ejennings@ndi-inc.org. We have a question and answer section at the end of the webinar, so feel free to send any questions you have during the course of the webinar. You can use the chat box to send a message to the host or the panelist. You can use the Q&A box if you'd like. If you're listening by phone, you can email your questions to ejennings@ndi-inc.org. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and materials will be placed on the NDI website at www.realeconomicimpact.org.
A special thank you to our sponsors for this MS Financial Wellness webinar series, Accorda Therapeutics. Thank you very much, Accorda Therapeutics. Thanks to their sponsorship, we're able to make this webinar happen. As a reminder, today we're going to discuss an overview of financial wellness and relative strategies. We like to start off each webinar this way so that you can understand what we really mean by financial wellness, all of the different strategies that are available, and how we came to decide on which strategies to talk about. We're then going to go over the benefit basics of supplemental security income. We're going to talk about doorways to employment supports and ways that you can start to carve a path back to work. We're going to a peer experience, and we're going to do some suggested next steps, and as Nakia mentioned, a question and answer period. Financial wellness. We'll define financial wellness as the state of a person's finances with the intent of working towards financial behaviors that limit stress and the impact of stress on one's daily life. We really want to think about not just where you are right now with your finances, but where you could go and what kind of changes need to take place to get you there. Financial wellness covers a lot of different aspects, being financially literate, accessing affordable financial services, using favorable tax provisions, budgeting, understanding public benefit rules, which we'll touch upon today, building and maintaining assets, accessing available health care subsidies, understanding the impact of work on long-term disability. Talk about poverty and building and financial wellness within the realm of the disability community because individuals with disabilities live in poverty at rates higher than those without. Individuals with disabilities ages 18 to 64, those without disabilities, lived below the poverty level at a rate of about 12.8% in 2010. For individuals with disabilities, that rate was twice, it was 7.3%. Group in America is more in need and more deserving of economic recovery. As individuals with disabilities are promised the right to have economic self-sufficiency through the Americans with Disabilities Act. However, for millions of working-age adults with disabilities, a dependence on public benefits for income, health care, food, and housing becomes a trap that requires low income to remain eligible. I think those of you on the line that receive SSI or Supplemental Security Income, you can understand this more than most. You understand that increasing income and increased assets has the threat of losing that SSI and accompanying Medicaid. So today is a real privilege for me to be able to give you some information about how SSI benefits work and really the great amount of room that you have within those rules to earn money and even in some cases to save money. Why I think this is important or financial wellness is important is because it impacts both mental and physical health. And for those of you on the line, you know that your mental and physical health can be very important, especially as it relates to your MS. It impacts a person's self-concept, changes your status with other community stakeholders, even impacts the quality of life. So for many of us, even to participate in free activities in the community may require additional cost related to one's disability. I want to make sure that all of you on the line and all individuals who are touched by a disability have within their box of tools all the different supports, services, and access to the different programs that can help them to increase their financial wellness. Wellness and MS. Before we started this webinar series, we did a survey with our partners at MSAA, and we learned a lot about the MS community from those that responded to the survey. We learned that over 55% of households earn less than $35,000 annually, and that 16.4% earn less than $50,000 but more than $35,000. So about 70% of households that responded to the survey with income less than $50,000 annually. What's about the ability to pay all of their bills in a typical month? Third, have a very difficult time paying their bills, and almost half reported a somewhat difficult time. And 3% of respondents reported that their financial status has affected their ability to access medical care at some point in time. We learned that over 70% of respondents do not have enough savings to cover 3 months' expenses. Important finding because those in the financial wellness field report that individuals should do their best to have 3 months' savings to cover expenses. And given a recent financial crisis in America, they've actually upped that number to 6 months of savings. So the recommendation is that every household have 6 months of savings to cover monthly expenses in the event of job loss or some other crisis. So for those that responded to the MS survey, over 70% reported they do not have enough savings to cover 3 months' expenses. 67% reported that their finances were worse since their MS diagnosis, and 73.7% reported that they were not aware or have not used financial stability programs. We primarily focused on financial stability programs that we have found are very suitable to support individuals with disabilities, particularly those who receive a public benefit. And the acronyms noted here are EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit, IRA, Individual Development Accounts, which is a protected savings opportunity, FSS, family self-sufficiency programs is another protected savings opportunity. And PASS, Plan for Achieving Self-Support, which we're going to talk about today. There are a lot of strategies that are available to support financial wellness. I have them kind of bundled here as they relate to each other. So there's financial literacy, budgeting, repair, and getting banked, which we're going to talk about in a future webinar. There are use of work incentives, which we'll talk about today, as well as tax incentives, your income tax assistance, and earned income tax credit, which we'll also be talking about in one of our next webinars. There are Medicaid Buyin programs, which we'll be talking about today. There are all different kinds of ways that people can save and borrow money. So family self-sufficiency programs, individual development accounts and retirement accounts, and then assistive technology loan funds and student loans. We hope that people will be able to work towards and save towards post-secondary education, employment, self-employment, microenterprise, and home ownership. And there are a lot of supports that are available to help you. There are protection and advocacy organizations, taxpayer advocates through the IRS, credit counseling programs, voluntary income tax assistance, and benefits planning programs, which we will talk about today along with protection and advocacy programs. So if you look at this different strategies that are available, we are doing our best through this webinar series to make sure that you have information on each of these opportunities. So even if you need to hold on to one or more public benefits, you have good information to help you decide whether or not you'll work, what level of work that will be, whether or not you'll save, and what level that will be, and what you'll save for, and who will be available to help you. So let's dive into Social Security disability benefits. The Social Security Administration has two programs to support individuals with disabilities who have an inability to work at a substantial level. The programs are Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, and Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. We did in our last webinar about Social Security Disability Insurance. So today we're going to focus on Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. We know that many people who receive these benefits want to work or want to return to work, but they're unsure what will happen to their benefits when they do. And we understand that there is a lot of misinformation out in the community about what will happen to these benefits. And there's a misconception that if an individual works, they will automatically lose eligibility for these programs. And we make sure that you have good information to understand when a myth is just a myth and when you're being told something that you may want to take seriously. Social Security policy includes work incentives that make it possible for individuals to test their ability to work and to continue to receive some or all of their cash and health benefits. I'm going to talk about those work incentives today, not all of them, but some of them that relate to SSI, Supplemental Security Income. When an individual decides that they would like to apply, or they decide that it's time for them to apply for Social Security disability benefits, then they have to prove two things, and they have to prove it for either Social Security benefit. They need to prove that they have a documented medical disability that lasts 12 months or longer or results in death, and they have to prove that because of that disability, they're not able to work and earn at a substantial gainful activity level. Only people that don't have to prove this are individuals who meet Social Security level of blindness. They only have to prove that they meet Social Security's definition of blind. They don't have to prove that they're not able to work. So let's talk about what they mean by substantial level. What Social Security is talking about when they say, does your documented medical disability prevent you from working at a substantial level, or what they call substantial gainful activity? Gainful activity is a basic test that Social Security uses to establish disability status. It's the performance of significant mental or physical duties for profit. It's usually determined to be an amount each year, and we gave you the amounts for 2012. For non-blind individuals, it's $10.10 per month, and for blind individuals, it's $16.90 per month. So a good way that people think about SGA is they use these dollar amounts. They say, if I'm going to go to work, then I should only work and earn under this SGA amount, which some of you may have heard in the community. But it gets a bit more complicated than that, which we're going to talk about soon. It's important to remember that an individual who decides to apply for Social Security benefits need to prove that they have a documented medical disability that will last 12 months or longer or result in death. And because of that disability, they're able to work and earn at a substantial level, which 2012 is $10.10 per month for non-blind individuals, $16.90 per month for blind individuals. There's additional eligibility requirements for individuals who are going to receive Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. In addition to proving that they have a documented medical disability that lasts 12 months or longer or results in death, and because of that disability, they're not able to work and earn at a substantial level, or $10.10 per month. Individuals also have to prove that they have a disability or are over age 65, and that the income less than $698 per month or $48 per month for a couple. Let's talk a little bit about what they mean by income. SSI is really intended for those who have very limited income and resources. So Social Security is interested in all of the income that they have. And so they talk about earned income, which can be many things. It can be a Social Security disability insurance payment. Sometimes people get both. It could an employment payment. It could be a veterans payment. It could be an annuity. It can be one of many different kinds of payments that somebody has coming in to them. Anything that's unearned. But they have two kinds of unearned income that you may not be familiar with or you may have never heard of. One, income. If I'm an individual who is seeking to receive SSI and I am married, my husband's income will count against me. Security will determine how much of his income should be available to me, and the income will count towards the $698 per month. So if I'm in the U.S. as an alien, my sponsor's income counts the same way. And although today we're really talking about SSI for adults, when you get SSI for children, the finances of a parent, some of their income can also be deemed to a child who's under age 18. SSI, once you turn age 18, you're no longer a child, you are an adult, so parent-to-child deeming would no longer count. So they look at all of a person's unearned income, including deemed income, and another kind that you may not have heard of, which is called in-kind support. So an individual who is living in another's household and is not contributing to that household can lose a third of their SSI check. This is called in-kind support. The reason for this is that SSI is intended to be used to pay for food and shelter. So if an individual is receiving shelter at no cost to them, or they're paying less than what would be considered their fair share or a reasonable amount for their shelter, then Social Security will deduct a third of their SSI check. So we'll also look at earned income, which I'm going to talk about pretty much for the rest of this webinar. But it is important for me to tell you that SGA does not factor once a person is on the SSI rolls. I put that here, but we're going to talk about it more in a little bit. The individual, in order to receive SSI, has to prove that they meet Social Security's definition of disability, that they have income less than $698, and that have resources less than $2,000 for an individual or $3,000 for a couple. There are a couple of resources that I want to make sure you know don't count. One, the home that you live in and the land that it's on. And the second is one car if used for work or medical appointments or is necessary based on the geographical terrain that you're in. That is excluded regardless of value. SSI is connected to Medicaid, and some states, when you qualify for SSI, you automatically qualify for Medicaid. In other states, you qualify for SSI, but you still have to go and apply elsewhere for Medicaid. So it can vary by your state. If you're living in a state where you are not automatically receiving Medicaid with your SSI and you need some information about that or some assistance, you're welcome to send me an email and we'll help connect you with some good resources in your area. Let's just go over this eligibility one more time just to make sure we're all on the same page. Individuals who, when they apply for Social Security will look to see if they're eligible for SSI, and they be eligible for SSI if they have a documented medical disability that will have 12 months or longer or result in death. And because of that disability, they're not able to work and earn over a substantial amount, which for 2012 is $1010 per month. And they have income less than $698 per month. They have resources less than $2,000. For the rest of this webinar, we're really going to talk about adults with SSI who are being counted as single adults. You get into SSI for couples or households where both the husband and the wife receive SSI, it gets much more complicated than we can do in this brief webinar. But it is information that we can provide to you if you need it. So again, feel free to send me an email. Any who comes onto the Social Security rolls is going to periodically receive a continuing disability review. Social Security periodically checks to make sure that individuals are still disabled, and they use a medical improvement standard to make this determination. So individuals will receive information in mail that they're asked to fill out that will help Social Security understand what does their current medical information look like, and that information will be reviewed so that they can determine that the individual continues to have a documented medical disability that will last 12 months or longer or result in death. It's an important thing for those of you on the line to know, because one of the things about MS is that it can have ebbs and flows, as many of you know. And so I want to make sure that you understand that just because you come onto the rolls doesn't mean that Social Security is not going to check again to see if you continue to have your same level of disability. So a continuing disability review might be something that you want to be thoughtful about, and we're going to talk about some protections towards the end of this webinar. Let me provide just a couple of key things about SSI before we start to talk about the work incentives. It's attached to Medicaid, and those eligibility rules vary by state. I always want to know about all of your income, your earned income, your unearned income, all of your income. And when you agree to receive SSI, you agree to let Social Security know when any of your income changes. So you have new income coming in and you lose income. So if you, say, for example, start a job, that's a change in income. You want to make sure Social Security is aware that you're reporting that work to them. And if you end a job, you also want to make sure they're aware, because they want to make sure that they are always updated on your income coming in. And once you are on the SSI rolls, so to get onto the rolls, you have to prove that documented medical disability prevents you from working at the SGA level. But once you're on, SGA is no longer a factor with SSI. So under the SSI rules, the more you work, the less you need from SSI. And Social Security determines that by doing an SSI calculation every month. So we'll look at the money that you have coming in, and they will determine how much of it they're going to count. And based on your countable earnings, they determine how much your SSI check will be up to that amount of $698. So this is a really important piece, and one that I want to take another minute on. A lot of times, individuals in the community believe that everybody who receives Social Security disability benefits, SSDI or SSI, has to work part-time to keep their earnings under the SGA amount. For individuals on SSDI, SGA can be a driving factor as to how much they'll work. But for those of you who receive SSI, you are not held to the SGA amount once you're on the rolls. So you are empowered to work and earn, and Social Security will determine how much of your wages are countable, and they'll determine your SSI check from there. Whether you're over or under SGA really isn't a concern. You're allowed to work and work and work to the best of your ability and earn as much as you can. And we'll talk about where your ceiling is in about 6 slides, so just hold tight. But I want to make sure you understand, if you receive SSI and someone tells you you're not allowed to earn over SGA, that doesn't apply to you as an SSI recipient. It applies to individuals who receive SSDI, but does not apply to you. Okay? So let's dive into some of these work incentives. Here's a comparison chart for you. So any of you were on our webinar 2 weeks ago, we talked about Social Security disability insurance and lots of wonderful work incentives that they can utilize. But today we're going to focus on Supplemental Security Income, and SSI also has lots of great work incentives. But if you look at the two side by side, the work incentives are not all the same, and the rules for each program are not the same. So it's really important that you always make sure that you are very certain about which benefit you're getting, and that you are getting information about the rules that apply to the benefit that you get. Okay? So I also want to note that there are a lot of work incentives listed here, and we're not going to have the opportunity to talk about all of them. For example, I know that there's probably very few, if any, of you on the line that are students who are regularly attending school. So the student earned income exclusion we're not going to discuss today. We're also not going to discuss property essential for self-support. That's really intended for people who are looking at self-employment. And if you're thinking about self-employment, I invite you to email me. There are a lot of great resources for self-employment that I'd be happy to share with you. But it's too much to do in a 90-minute webinar. I'm going to dive into some of these work incentives and just say one more thing before I do. What we're talking about today related to SSI scratches the surface of your benefits that you receive. So I hope that you will take our advice and connect with some of the benefit planners in your own local area, or seek some additional information from us here at National Disability Institute, and recognize that while we're hoping to give you a lot of good information, it may not be everything that you need to make a decision. One of the work incentives that is available to you under SSI is called Impairment-Related Work Expenses, or IRWEs. Impairment-related work expenses allow you to reduce the countable earnings by looking at all of the expenses that you pay for to go to work because of your disability. And what Security does is when they're looking to see how much of your income should be countable, they allow you to deduct those expenses. So, for example, if you are interested in returning to work, you could look at all of the medications that you pay for because of your disability. So that's a really great deduction for you. So some of you on the line may take medications that are not covered by health care, or you may, in addition to the medications that you take, you may benefit from things like physical therapy and other things that may be covered but in more limited ways. So you could look at all of the expenses related to the things that you pay for your prescriptions and your medical needs, and ones that you pay for because of your disability. And could deduct those to have a lower amount of countable earnings, which means that you would be allowed to keep some or all of your SSI cash benefit. Let me give you a concrete example. You might be paying $100 out of pocket for your medical expenses. The way the SSI calculation works, that would mean that you would get to count about half of that. Possibly half of that would come back to you, your SSI check. Expenses can be very important and they can add up quickly. You want to think about anything that you pay for yourself to go to work because of your disability. So even beyond medications, it could be that you are paying for, I'm drawing a blank. Sorry, everyone. It could be that you had to pay to have a ramp made so that you can leave the house to go to work. That would count as an IRWI. It could be that you use paratransit services or special transportation to go to work. That could be an IRWI. It could be that you're not able to drive and public transportation isn't adequate to get you for your job. So you could pay someone to take you to work. That would be an IRWI. Thank you for one of our people on the webinar who sent in, maybe you need to replace tires on a wheelchair so that you can go to work. That could be an IRWI. Or you might have another medical need that requires you to pay for anything out of pocket to go to work. Could count as an IRWI. The thing I really like about IRWIs is it's a pretty gray area. And I know a lot of times we think of Social Security as being very black and white and very rigid, but really a lot of their rules are very gray. And you can plead your case within the boundaries of their rules and see if the claims representative will accept it. So if it fits these three rules, I paid for myself to go to work because of my disability, and you could give it a chance. So, wonderful opportunity for you to sit down and think about what are all of the things that I would pay for to go to work because of my disability, and see what kind of IRWI you might be available to you. There's no time limits in using IRWIs. You likes to know that it's something you paid for in a month that you worked. It doesn't have to be a one-time expense. It can be applied month to month. It also could be a rather large expense that is divided up over several months. On the next slide, you can see that we gave you some information about reporting IRWIs. The first month that you use an IRWI, you want to make an appointment to talk to someone at Social Security to explain to them what the IRWI is, tell them the reason for the cost. You're going to need receipts for that. And you want to make sure that they're going to approve the IRWI. And then you want to talk to them about how they're deducting that from your countable earnings, just so that you have a better understanding of how that calculation works. But this can be a really wonderful way to help you maintain some or all of your SSI cash benefit. But more importantly, it allows Social Security to understand that in order for you to work, there are different costs associated with that. So letting Social Security know, I'm somebody who has a documented medical disability, for a long time has prevented me to work and earn at a substantial level. I'm going back to work, and I'm going to work to the best of my ability, but there are these things that I'm going to need in order to do that. I'm going to need these medications. I'm going to need transportation assistance. I'm going to need different durable medical equipment. You also be using IRWIs to pay for accommodations on the job that maybe you don't want to disclose to your employer that you need. To me, IRWIs really give a good picture to Social Security about the different supports that it takes for you to go to work. And that can be very helpful as they have your understanding of disability and the kind of impact it's having on your life and your ability to work. Work incentive that is available to individuals who receive SSI is blind work expenses. Blind work expenses are very similar to impairment-related work expenses, except for two things. First of all, as you can guess by the name, these are expenses that really this work incentive that is available to individuals who are blind. So you need to be blind. And the other is that the rules are a little bit different. So blind work expenses allow blind beneficiaries to reduce countable earnings due to any cost incurred to go to work. That's different, isn't it? For ERWIs, we said that you paid for yourself to go to work because of a disability. And blind work expenses, it's things a person paid for themselves to go to work. For folks that are blind, and by blind I mean they meet Social Security's level of blindness, for these folks, they don't have to prove that the cost was related to their disability. They just have to prove that that was a cost they incurred to go to work. That's broader, isn't it? So individuals can deduct a lot of very expensive things. Two that pull out is child care and taxes. An individual under blind work expenses can deduct the cost of taxes that are taken out of their paycheck. Other things are, meals during work hours and cost for their service animal, transportation to and from work, any cost incurred to go to work. And I know that some of you on the line may not be thinking about blind work expenses now, but one thing about aging and certain disabilities is that you can incur blindness along the way. So it's a good incentive for you to know about, and good to remember that if you should incur blindness while on the Social Security rolls, you want to make sure you're going back to let Social Security know and to help them update your medical records in that way. You're thoughtful about these different features of the blind work expenses, so the expense does not have to relate directly to blindness, but it does need to be a work-related expense, and it does need to be one that the person pays out of pocket. So just the ERWIs, when you're reporting these, you want to make sure that you are connecting with someone at the Social Security field office, that you're letting them know what the work is and why it's related to work, that you paid for it yourself. You want to be able to show your pay stubs and your receipts. You know if it's going to be approved or not and how it will impact your countable earnings. And you also want to make sure, and I apologize if I didn't mention this under ERWIs, but you want to make sure that you are asking how frequently Social Security would like these expenses reported. And regardless of what you're told, you make sure you're continuing to keep receipts for these expenses and that you are always reporting your work and your work expenses to the Social Security Administration. So you're always reporting your pay stubs along with whether you're using ERWIs or blind work expenses. If you think about financial wellness, one of the really great things about ERWIs and blind work expenses is that they help a person to think about their budget. You're keeping track of what you're spending to work because of your disability, or just for blind work expenses to go to work. That really helps you to better understand your budget and where your money is going, and what of work you're going to do to make those costs out for work really make it worthwhile. A wonderfully impactful work incentive that is available to folks who receive SSI is Plan for Achieving Self-Support. Plans for Achieving Self-Support allow an individual to set aside income other than SSI or sources that would otherwise affect their eligibility for a benefit or the individual's payment amount towards achieving a work goal. Basically, you're allowed to set aside money and to save it over the $2,000 asset limit in a specially defined account that you set up yourself called a PASS account toward any work goal. And more specifically, a work goal that's going to make you more self-sufficient. So a work goal is going to decrease your dependence on SSI. The great thing about PASS plans is it allows you to think outside of the box. It allows you to think about what do you really want to do, what kind of work would be most suitable for you, for your time, your talents, along with your medical needs. And you want to be able to think about what you would need to get there and how you might save for it. So it gives you a great chance to assess what is going to be best for you, and if that assessment means, say, I want to be a chef, but to do that, I'm going to need to save and go to school and purchase the proper equipment. How am I going to do that? Then a PASS plan could be a way that you could make that dream come true. It's been really wonderful to work with people on PASS plans and to learn about things that folks have done. I've seen people who wrote PASS plans to become sign language interpreters and who set aside money to go to school, to take the test, to purchase the professional attire, to quality transportation so that they would be able to get all over a region that they might need to drive to. I've seen people use it to become educators. Folks use it to start their own business. Other folks use it for things that accommodations that they would need on the job. So perhaps they wanted to do something that was a little less than some of the things I talked about. Maybe the individual wants to do office work, but they would need certain accommodations to do that. They could save for those accommodations in a PASS plan. They were not working with their employer to provide them. PASS plan can be really broad and can provide a lot of room for you to think about what you'd like to be and how you're going to get there. To use a PASS plan, you want to have a specific work goal, time range for reaching that goal, and it's one you set, not necessarily one that's dictated to you by Social Security. Social Security works with you on setting up a PASS plan. They have a cadre of Social Security workers called PASS cadres, and while they don't necessarily write the PASS plan for you, you would do that with some supports in your community if that's necessary. But you can write the PASS plan and you can submit it to them, and they can provide some guidance on things you need to change or places where they need more information. But within the PASS plan, you show your work goal, you show your time frame for reaching the goal, you identify the money that you're going to contribute, and remember it's any money other than SSI. So show the money that you're going to contribute to reach your work goal. You show how you're going to keep that money separate. Meaning you're going to set up a separate account, which you do at your local financial institution, a bank or a credit union, and you provide the account information to the Social Security Administration. That's how you show you're going to keep your funds separate. You show how you're going to save and later spend that money. You submit the PASS plan in writing, and they have a specific form for that. And if you're going to start a business, you would also include a business plan. The cadre will help you to understand where you need to make adjustments to your PASS plan, and they will be the ones to decide if it's approved. They're also going to periodically review the PASS plan to make sure you're in compliance with where your goal is, what you've agreed to do. And the final thing is that the goal that they're looking for is they want you to be decreasing your dependence on SSI, so decreasing the amount that you receive in cash benefits from Social Security. But with all that, there's a lot of room for you to be very creative about what you would like to do. There are some great resources. The Social Security Administration provides some good information on PASS plans, and we gave you that website here. We are available to send the slides to you, but for those of you who would like to take these more immediately, we're going to post them in the chat box for you. Just hold tight. And Cornell University has created a wonderful website called passonline.org. And on that website, you can actually electronically fill out a PASS plan, and you can do that. Right online. Wonderful resource. They provide a lot of information on how PASS plans work. It's a great resource. It's one that I would highly recommend to you. If you're thinking that this is a little bit too far from where you are right now, maybe you're just thinking about returning to work, I would still encourage you to keep PASS plans tucked away in the back of your mind. Because as you begin to work, you may find that it's great to go back to work and have a job and have some additional income, but you may decide for yourself that you'd like something more. And when you're working, that's a great time because you have money other than SSI to set aside into a PASS plan. So even if you're not ready for it right now, I really encourage you to take a look at some of these resources and think about how this wonderful work incentive could help you to get to wherever you want to be along the lines of your own path to work. Probably the most important work incentive that I could share with you today is called 1619B. So individuals who receive SSI, we've talked about the fact that it is connected to Medicaid. And 1619B is what protects your Medicaid when you return to work. So other times individuals think, I would like to return to work, but I have to keep some of my SSI cash benefits so that I can keep my Medicaid. And that really isn't true. If you lose your SSI cash benefit because of work, and you are still disabled, you still have assets under $2,000, you need your Medicaid to work, and you've been eligible for SSI for at least 1 month, then you can keep your Medicaid under 1619B until you get to this state threshold amount. So the state threshold amounts vary from state to state, but in some states, for instance, I looked up New Jersey for someone earlier today. The state threshold amount in New Jersey is just over $33,000 a year. While some people who receive SSI think, I'm not allowed to work and earn over SGA, you know that is not correct. The thing for you is the 1619B state threshold amount. We can check for your state through this link. And you want to consider that is really what you would want to think of as the most I can earn is this amount in a calendar year. Monthly, but in a calendar year. If you are someone who has very high healthcare costs, then you may be eligible for an individualized threshold amount. So even this state threshold amount might not be your ceiling. You might still have the option to earn even more. So what I'm sure you understand under 1619B is 1619B does not require that you keep any of your cash benefit. It means that you can work and earn money to the best of your ability. And if those earnings cause you to lose your SSI cash benefit, you will keep your Medicaid eligibility under 1619B until you hit the state threshold amount. If you lose your SSI cash benefit because of other things, say perhaps you're over assets or you marry someone and now their income counts against you, 1619B doesn't protect you. But lose your cash benefit because of earnings, 1619B protects you and lets you know that your ceiling for earnings is your state threshold amount. When you will start to return to work, sometimes they have thoughts about, well, what happens if I am told I'm no longer eligible for SSI? And there's two ways that can happen. One way is that you might not be eligible because of medical improvement. So as you remember, every so often, Social Security will come back and check to see if you continue to be disabled through a continuing disability review. If you are shown to be medically improved, then you may not be able to continue to receive your SSI. But participating in a vocational rehabilitation program, and you will continue to stay on the SSI rolls until you finish that program. So it's not going to keep you on forever, but it will help you to stay on until you finish that program, which is very helpful and can be an incentive for you to think about returning to work. So if you are taken off of the Social Security rolls because of work, how that works under SSI is if you are not eligible for your SSI cash benefit or for your SSI health care benefit for 12 months in a row, then you could come off of the SSI rolls. If that happens, you have the option of requesting what's called expedited reinstatement. It's so that you can come back onto the rolls immediately. Social Security will give you provisional benefits for up to 6 months. Those provisional benefits will be able to give a cash benefit and a health care benefit for up to 6 months while Social Security does a review of your Social Security does a review of your documented medical disability. If Social Security decides that you do continue to be disabled, then you will come back onto the rolls. If they find that you are not disabled, then you do not repay the provisional benefits. If you come off of the rolls because of work, and you have up to 60 months from the month that your benefits are terminated to request expedited reinstatement and to get those 6 months of provisional benefits and potentially come back onto the rolls. You all have the option at any time of reapplying for benefits, and always an option to use. You can do either, or actually you could do both. You could request expedited reinstatement, and if you're not brought back onto the rolls, you also have the option of reapplying. I also want to make sure that you're aware of Medicaid buy-in programs. It can happen that you'll return to work and you'll have opportunities to continually increase the level of work that you're doing and that you're earning, and you might have options to go over that state threshold amount. And I would encourage you, when you start to work, that you look in to see if your state has a Medicaid buy-in program. Unfortunately, not every state has a Medicaid buy-in program, but many do. And if your state does, it's a great way for you to receive Medicaid under a program that will allow you to have even higher income and asset guidelines. So in some states, they go as high as $75,000 a year in income, and they may have an asset guideline that is equal to that high and not include 401k plans. It can be a really wonderful program. But these programs are different state by state. The state determines the income and asset guidelines, and the state determines whether or not they have a Medicaid buy-in program. I do want to make sure you know that Medicaid buy-in programs do require that you're working at some level, and in many states they require that you pay something for your Medicaid. Typically that cost is very, very reasonable, and some states they call it a Medicaid buy-in program, but they actually have no cost to the program. A link to try to look at the Medicaid buy-in program in your local area. Unfortunately, there's not one place that houses all of the programs nationally. So sometimes your best bet is to use some of the resources we're going to provide and ask them if there's a Medicaid buy-in program, or to Google Medicaid buy-in program in your state and see if that's a good avenue to finding the program in your area. If you are interested in a Medicaid buy-in program in your state and you do not have good luck locating one, then please feel free to email me and I will help you. Before we go into supports to assist you, I want to take a minute to go over what we've talked about SSI. SSI, or Supplemental Security Income, as you now know, is the Social Security disability benefit for individuals who have a documented medical disability that lasts 12 months or longer or results in death, and because of that disability, they're not able to work and earn at a substantial level, which SGA, which for this year is $10.10 per month. Individuals who get SSI also have limited income. It's less than $698 per month, and Social Security looks at all of a person's income. And they have limited assets, less than $2,000. But the home that you live in and the land it's on and one car does not count as an asset. So SSI is connected to Medicaid, and in some states that means you automatically get Medicaid, and in other states it means it's a qualifier for Medicaid, but you'll still have to go and apply for it. You work and you get SSI, Social Security will look at your earnings, and they'll determine how much of your earnings are countable, and they'll deduct your countable earnings from federal benefit rate of $698 to determine how much your SSI cash payment will be. There are work incentives that you can use, such as impairment-related work expenses and work expenses to deduct the cost of items you pay for to go to work because of your disability, or blind work expenses, the cost of items you pay for to go to work. And those deductions can be very helpful because they can allow for a lower amount of countable earnings, which could mean a higher SSI cash payment. There's also PASS plans, which allow you to set aside money and to save for a work goal. And plans allow you to set aside money above the $2,000 asset limit. And another thing about PASS plans that I'm sorry I didn't mention is PASS plan can also reduce your countable earnings. So you are working and earning under SSI. You want to make sure that you understand that you are held to SGA or $10.10 per month as your limit. That is not the most that you can earn in a month. You can earn any amount, and Security will decrease your SSI payment based upon how much you earn. And if you need a ceiling, if you want to know what's my ceiling, how much can I work and earn before I'm in jeopardy of losing my SSI eligibility, then what you want to look at is your state threshold amount under 1619B. You can keep your Medicaid under 1619B up to that state threshold amount. So let's talk about some supports to assist you, because that feels like a lot of information, and that's not even all of the information about SSI when you return to work. It's a very, very good start. So there are individuals in your local community that are called benefits planners. Individuals have been receiving funding from Social Security through grants from the Social Security Administration to local areas for about the past 10 years. Unfortunately, funding for those programs ended in June of this year, so many of those programs are no longer in existence. But again, this is a thing that's in flux right now, so they don't have one clearinghouse where you can go to a website and find out who is the people still providing service in my area. So I wanted to give you who those benefit planners were, because many of them are still providing service under other funding, or even more importantly, they know who is providing service. So I think this link is still very important to you. I'll tell you what these benefit planners do. They provide work incentive planning and assistance, which means that they can sit down with you and look at the different kind of benefits you get and help you to understand when you go to work at different levels how those benefits will be impacted. So they can teach you the calculation that SSI will apply to your earned and unearned income to figure out your countable earnings. And they can help you understand which work incentives you might want to use. If you're interested in doing a PASS plan, they can help you better understand how that works. Any benefit planners can also help you understand not just your Social Security benefits, but some of the other public benefits that you receive. I'm really sorry to tell you that there's not one clearinghouse to find these folks in your local area, but this link that I provide you is really the best option. And if you cannot find a benefit planner in your local area, again, I invite you to send me an email, and I will help to do that research work with you. For support is protection and advocacy agencies. These folks are available in every state and have the authority to provide legal representation and other advocacy services under all federal and state laws to all people with disabilities, and base that on a system of priority for service. Meaning, like most folks, they have limited funds, and so they do have to prioritize different services. But related to employment, this is what different protection and advocacy agencies can do for you. They can help you when you want to know when help is available to get or keep a job, and to know what will happen to your benefits if you go to work, to help if they're to help you know when you have transportation problems, what some of the resources are. Also help you if you believe you've been fired or not given a job because of your disability. Any discrimination on the job is something that they could help with. They also help you if you think that you are being unfairly treated related to your disability. Protection and advocacy can be very, very helpful. Again, these programs differ state by state. The important things to know is that in some states they do less legal representation and more advocacy services, and in other states they do less advocacy services and more legal representation. So it can depend on your state. They are all a part of a national organization, so their member agencies are listed for you there under the list of providers. If you have any concern in your state, or you feel, I know there are services that I need, but I don't know how to find them, and you're having a hard time with that, protection advocacy can be a good first step. And also, you can also reach out to us here at National Disability Institute. So we're going to come back to the peer perspective once the individual who's going to speak has a chance to come onto the line, so just hold tight for that. But in the meantime, I'd like to talk to you about some doorways to employment supports. One of the best kept secrets in the disability community is not only that there are these SSI work incentives that help you and support you in making a return to work, but that there are also several organizations available in each local community with a mission to help individuals with disabilities make a return to work. So we'll talk about the ones listed here: state vocational rehabilitation agencies, Department of Labor one-stop centers, which are now called America's Job Centers, independent living resource centers, Social Security's Ticket to Work program, and then some of the federal hiring initiatives that are focused on hiring people with disabilities. State Vocational Rehabilitation Program, which has a slightly different name in every state, just to keep it interesting, but they are state-federal partnerships that promote the employment of people with disabilities. You can utilize these services, and they will assign to a VR counselor who has training to work with you to identify your employment goals, an assessment to make sure that your goals match with where your skills and aptitudes lie, provide access to assistive technology and other employment supports. And many times they know about other pilot programs and special initiatives that are going on in a state that can be very helpful to you. And a lot of VR programs provide the benefits planning that we talked about earlier. So I'll give you a link to connect with state agencies in your local area that provide vocational rehabilitation. Remember, this is a state entity that will have local offices in your local community. Really, their mission is to help people with disabilities obtain and maintain employment. So they can be incredibly helpful and can provide a whole range of services that would be important to you. Department of Labor, through their American Job Centers, also provide return to work supports. These supports fall under the Workforce Investment Act. They may include employment, education, or training services. you can walk into a one-stop and get a whole host of services that may be beneficial to you. Sometimes it's as simple as a posting of jobs that are open. Other times it could be computer classes, other training classes, and then you can also be registered and receive more intensive services that include higher education, more of technical education, and more specific case management services to help you return to work. If you've never gone to visit a job center, I really recommend that you do. They can be very helpful. They provide a lot of services all in one place. And even if you're not quite sure where you are or you haven't quite made a decision, this is really a no risk. You don't have to register. You can go in and feel very at ease, just kind of getting a feel of what they offer and starting to become aware with what kind of services they provide. In 23 states, there's a disability employment initiative that gets into more concrete services within these one-stop centers targeted to people with disabilities. So if you live in a state that has a disability employment initiative, when you go into the American Jobs Center, you're going to know this because you want to connect with the Disability Resource Coordinator. So you can see if your state is a Disability Employment Initiative state by visiting the link www.dei-ideas.org. And if you're not sure or you're not sure how to connect with them, you can reach out to us here at National Disability Institute. Another great resource in your local community is the Independent Living Resource Center. There's also sometimes called Centers for Independent Living. Grassroots, advocacy-driven organizations run by and for people with disabilities, and they typically have 4 core services: individual and systems advocacy, information and referral, peer support, and independent living skills training. These supports can be very helpful to you. Sometimes they offer employment support, sometimes they don't. But these other supports can be critically important to you as you start to better understand the range of services that are available to you. An independent living center could be your key to figuring out who in your local area provides benefits planning. They help you better understand where to turn for employment services. They could help you to better understand how to request an accommodation on the job, or you could just connect with other people who are thinking about returning to work and have questions similar to yours. To locate an independent living center near you, you are going to visit the website we have listed there. And again, if you have any hard time with that, please feel free to reach out to me. I understand we now have our peer presenter on the line, so I want to take a minute to welcome and give a very sincere thank you to Maureen, who's on the line with us. Maureen, if you wouldn't mind sharing with folks on the line a little bit about how you made your decision to return to work and whether or not that has been a good one for you.
Elizabeth, and hello everybody.
Hi.
How you doing today? Well, going back to work, I've identified myself with my job, any job, just being able to go out there. Realized that I was sitting at home an awful lot, and I used to volunteer in schools. I used to read to kindergarten. I used to tutor kids. I used to do this and that and the other thing. And all of a sudden, with the diagnosis, the world crashes, and you just don't know what to do. And I realized you have to go forward. I had to go forward. I had to get myself back there again. And it was not an easy decision to maintain. It's very discouraging, especially, if there is big differences between the before diagnosis you and the after diagnosis you. For some people with MS, there's hardly anything that presents itself obviously, and for others there are immense changes, whether you need a walker, whether you need a wheelchair, whether you need a cane, whether you drive because your optic nerves are affected. You have to keep going anyway. If I were to give you a message, that would be it. it would be to get yourself back out there. Start small if that's what makes you feel comfortable. If you used to volunteer in schools, I spent a lot of time on the phone yesterday with Elizabeth just talking about, I'm on SSDI, which is a very different circumstance from SSI. But the similarities are the same. There's a lot of people who used to do a lot of volunteer work among you. You should try to do some of that again. And the reason it puts you out there with people, and it helps you feel better about yourself, and eventually you'll get confidence back. I wish I'd say you'd get your old self back. That's not going to happen. But the reality is you will get a lot more back than you put in, and it will help you to keep moving forward. I work credit union. Elizabeth and I met through a Kessler-sponsored program. I had difficulty finding work. I could still work. Because I couldn't find part-time job that wasn't retail, that required being on your feet, doing stock, being very physical, which is not what I can do anymore. I could in an office if I could find good office part-time work, sit at a desk mostly. And I'm thankful to Elizabeth and the Best Intern Program, which was sponsored in part with Kessler. And it helped me find placement. When you intern, like a 6-week interview, a lot of people are kind of caged. They're not really willing to work with people who have ability. But if you prove yourself that you're consistent and consistent, will take you on. I don't know what advice I can give you as to how to do that in an interview. But I would say start small. Start with the volunteering. If you build yourself up with something that used to make you feel good, even if it's a changed manner of doing it, I think it will help you reestablish yourself and reestablish a new self. And the part for me is understanding that in many ways this new self, MS, in many ways is an immensely better place. I live in New Jersey. I don't know if Elizabeth shared that. And we're very affected by Hurricane Sandy. And she had texted me about, well, Maureen, how are you doing up there? We're worried about everybody who was affected by the hurricane. And when you have a chronic issue, such as MS or anything else, basically every day is probably not the same magnitude, but every day is some sort of hurricane. Have to keep rolling with the punches. It sucks. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. That would be a lie. Elizabeth, it's a lie, right?
Yeah.
But, you do have to keep going. And when I said everybody, I had to go to a store yesterday to pick up something. And I wasn't aware that the storm was bearing down on us the way it is. It's snowing now up here in New Jersey. And everybody was frantic. I went into the store and everybody was frantic. And, oh, my God, if they don't get that egg, if they don't get that of whatever, they are just going to die. And I'm sitting there like, it's just a freaking kid. Relax. You come from a whole different place because you have to. Not too many people can do this. I mean, unfortunately, it's not something you would have chosen, but what you can choose is how you react to it. And you can choose to be courageous and put yourself out there. For me, it was really tough. I am still 5'11". I'm a lot heavier than I used to be, but I was somebody who liked wearing heels, liked dressing well. Can't wear heels anymore. I put on some weight. Do I like that I don't wear heels anymore? I see all these great long dresses. Long dresses are back in style, and I love that. But they really look good in my mind with heels. And I was thinking, I should get 2 cardboard boxes and paint like a a picture of a lady's legs in heels and just wear the cardboard boxes or boots or something like that. Like, from a distance, somebody might think I was wearing heels because I am so tall I could probably get away with that. I know that sounds crazy, but you really do have to roll with the punches. It sucks. I'm not going to lie about that. Yes?
I'm sorry. So, can you also share with folks a little bit about, we're running short on time here, but just a little bit about making that transition onto the job and
Sure. When I worked full time, I was able to say a paralegal. Can't really maintain, an 8-hour day every day. I could do it once a week. And you're open with the person who's going to be employing you, and if you can present yourself well, and if you can explain to them that, you're part-time and you will maintain your schedule, most employers will work with you. I do have days that it's very hard for me to get into the office. I can call my boss and say, I need to come in late today. He understands that. You'll eventually develop that kind of relationship with whatever employer you have, but by what you can choose. If there's one thing I would say about work, bite off what you can chew. Bite off what you can manage. Bite off what you're sure of. After you're at that job for a while, if you feel you want to go on, try something else, well, then you can. But if you want to do everything you used to do, you will do it, but you will be exhausted. Because one thing across the board with MS patients is that we're a heck of a lot more easily than we used to. I have a strong resume. My suggestion is I don't know what you discussed with them because I wasn't able to join in the call earlier because of circumstances at home today. But our various places, such as Division of Vocational Rehab, you would qualify for that. You win, and they will help you write your resume. They will sit down and tell you, look, you volunteered working with kids, so that means that and the other thing, or you helped raising at your church. That means you can do this. You served on the board of trustees for a nonprofit organization, whether it was a library, a church, or one of those benevolent brotherhoods such as Elks. To translate what they call, I hate using the phrase translatable skills, but the skills that if you rethink it, a lot of those skills are very similar to what's required in jobs.
Thanks so much, Maureen.
Okay.
Thank you, Maureen. I can't thank you enough.
Okay.
What was your parting word?
Be courageous.
Good one.
Okay.
Thanks, Maureen.
Talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
That final word was a good one. Be courageous, because I know that many of you on the line are, so thinking it'll take a little bit of courage to look at your Social Security benefits and also want to make some changes there, because they are important to you and they should be. And like I mentioned, today you're getting some information about those benefits, and I hope you're being encouraged to think about how much you can work and to understand that you have a lot of room to work under SSI. I understand that you will still need some more information, and hopefully each of the resources that we're providing will be good points of contact for you. Another program that I want to make sure that you're aware of is the Social Security Ticket to Work program. Any of you may be slightly familiar with this, but may have some misconceptions about it. The Ticket to Work program started about 10 years ago, and people got tickets in the mail that said you are now invited to use your ticket in the Ticket to Work program and return to work. And for people, that was scary. But what you want to make sure you understand about Ticket to Work is that it's a voluntary program, so you can use it if you want to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And that the program does two things for you. It gives you greater choice who you're going to go to for your return to work services. So it's going to provide the different supports that you need to return to work. And the second thing that it does is it gives a suspension of your continuing disability review when you're actively using your ticket. So focus on that for a second. If you're somebody who is such a person with MS, who knows that their disability is one that is going to have cycles, and thinking about returning to work, it might be a very good idea for you to use your Ticket to Work because it will suspend your continuing disability review. So it will give you a chance to go to work, to become competent on your job, to know that it was a good job match, and to work at increasingly higher levels while knowing that you're protected from having a continuing disability review that could potentially show that you had medically improved and should no longer be on the rolls. So that's the importance of Ticket to Work for you. Now, you don't have to use your Ticket to Work. The only other thing it's going to do for you is give information about a network of service providers called the employment networks that are just contractors who have agreed to provide vocational services under Ticket to Work. So there's some resources for you on Ticket to Work, and it's chooseworkttw.net. That's a great website designed for individuals who are receiving SSA and SSDI, so that you can better understand the Ticket to Work program. You can know that this is a program to provide you an opportunity to return to work, to choose who you will request your return to work services from, and to have a protection from a continuing disability review while you're actively using your ticket. Final resource that we want to share with you is information about the federal hiring of people with disabilities. There is a strong push to make sure that the federal government is the model employer and that they're setting the standard for the rest of the employers in the country about how to hire individuals with disabilities and to make sure that a workplace is an inclusive workplace, which means that it is one that supports both individuals with and without disabilities. There are two that you want to know about. One is the Schedule A hiring, and the other is their information in general about their initiative to hire more individuals with disabilities. So again, we gave you two links to that so that you can learn more. This can be a wonderful opportunity for you, particularly if you live in an area such as I do in Washington, D.C., where there are a lot of federal jobs. I would encourage you to look at both of these anyway. Here's a list of all of the resources. Now, I know that you aren't all sitting there with a copy of the PowerPoint, but if you'd like a copy, you can email me. But this webinar will be archived, so you have access to review this webinar beginning tomorrow on our website, the same one that you linked to register for this webinar. And so all of the working resources are here. And I'd also wanted to provide you with some information about accommodations. There are two great nationally funded resources for requesting and understanding accommodations. One is the Job Accommodation Network, and the other is the ADA National Network. Both these can be great resources for you in understanding what your rights are under the ADA and around requesting accommodations. And more particular to JAN, the Job Accommodation Network, you may not really know what kind of accommodations there are, or you may know, I think I could do this with some kind of support, but I don't know what that support is called, or if there's a tool out there that could help me to do it. The Job Accommodation Network can be very helpful with that, and are keenly accustomed to helping people understand what kind of accommodation might work for them and how to ask for that. So I hope you'll tap into that as a resource. Sources we gave you are free, and I want to challenge you with a few next steps. So you got a lot of information today that you're going to be able to review in the days and weeks and months to come through the archive of the webinar. Here's a few next steps that we think would be great for you to attempt. The first is to register with one of the employment support programs we talked to you about. So your state vocational rehabilitation center, the Department of Labor One-Stop Center or American Job Center, or the Ticket to Work program. So take a look at those and research and register with one of those. The next step would be to meet with a benefits planner so that you can make an informed choice about the impact of work on your benefits, including the level of work you're going to attempt. So how many hours you're going to try to work and how much money you're going to seek to earn. And a benefits planner can be very helpful in that process. Set a goal to complete these 2 steps over the next 3 months. We want to extend that a little bit more with the holiday season coming on, although the holidays do sometimes provide an opportunity for even more opportunities to work. And share with us your experience. We're going to send you out some additional tools, and we're going to email you over the next few months to ask you, how did it go? Did you set this goal for yourself? And if you did, what happened? And what can you tell us to make this a better experience for others who are in a similar situation? So here's my contact information, Elizabeth Jennings, 202-296-2044, or my email address, which is really the best way to contact me, ndi-inc.org. I hope you'll use all of the resources that we provided to you, but that if you hit a stumbling block or brick wall, that you'll reach out to me. We answered all of the questions in the question box, but if you have another question, I offer to you to send it now, and I'm happy to answer it. And again, if you want a copy of the slides, please shoot me an email, and I will send that to you. Somebody asked, can a job coach be written into an IRWI? And the answer is yes. For those of you on the line that are not aware, a job coach is somebody who is paid to support you on the job. They can be a great resource, especially if you are in a position where you may need some additional support to get acquainted to the job, but possibly not need support forever. And job coaches are provided through some employment support programs, but if you are not afforded a job coach, you want to pay for one yourself, that would be something that you paid for yourself to go to work because of your disability and could count as an IRWI. Another question received is, why is there such a gap in the benefit for a blind person and a non-blind person when it comes to a monthly allowance? Well, the simple answer to that is that the blind organizations did better advocacy. Social Security was setting their rules. But I will remind you that when you're talking about the monthly allowance, and I assume we're referring to SGA, because you noticed SGA for non-blind individuals is $10.10, and for blind individuals is $16.90. But I want to remind all of you on the line that for individuals who receive SSI, once you're on the SSI rolls, SGA no longer applies. So it's really equal then. You, as a blind person and a non-blind person, can go out and earn as much as possible, and your ceiling will be that 1619B state threshold amount. So if you have any other questions, I'm standing in the box, so I want to have us come to close today since we're just a little bit over time, but invite you again to feel free to email me at ndi-inc.org. I'll be thrilled to answer any questions that you have and to connect you to greater supports. I thank you again for participating today in this webinar, SSI, the Impact of Work on Benefits. And I want to thank our sponsor, Accorda, for the funds that support this webinar series and for the ongoing support. And I thank all of you for participating. It's only because of you that we have the opportunity to do this. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you'll be able to join us again in 2 weeks for our next webinar. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.